Yep.
Hey, we're live. And thank you for all those that are joining us today for Team's fourth episode of Startup. But this particular session, I think, is really interesting for established businesses as well, because it's one of the areas I see recruiters don't really invest or crack or get right. And I've got two fantastic partners of Team with us today. Darren, joint founder at Paiger and CEO with Paiger, and Rob from the Marketing Junction, both of which are, I'm going to describe you as experts in recruitment marketing. And I don't think that's not bigging you up at all. It marks the spot. So welcome both of you, and thank you very much for giving your time and giving your advice to lots of our startups that are setting out on what is a pretty tricky journey, and also quite a few existing established businesses that really think they need to focus on brand. So thank you guys for joining us. Really good to have you here. I'm going to kick things off. I think starting a recruitment business, if you're a professional recruiter, the market's going to be easy for you. You know who your clients potentially are going to be. You know where the candidates live, but you're in a different space thinking about your business brand rather than just your personal brand. You've never had to perhaps set up a website before. You start to think about some of the messaging that's attached to being the business owner rather than just the sales guy in a recruitment agency. So I'm quite keen to try and get from you both, how would you define a strong and sustainable brand in the recruitment industry, and what does that look like in practice? And no pressure, going to go straight to Darren on this one.
No pressure at all. So it's an interesting one, right? Because I remember when I started Paiger, it wasn't called Paiger, and we were a different brand, right? And I got so excited. I created the Facebook page, the LinkedIn, the Twitter, and I did the website and all of these great things. And a year later, we ended up rebranding. So the biggest thing for me as a lesson is don't overthink it. You know, get it done, and also bring in help when you can. So you've got to realize that you started your own business as a recruiter because you're a damn good recruiter, right? You said you know your clients, you know your industry. It doesn't mean that overnight you have to be an expert at everything. You know, the reason that I co-founded Paiger rather than just did it on my own is because I didn't understand sales when I first started, right? I'm a brilliant tech guy, right? So I found somebody that actually was a brilliant salesperson to come on this journey with me. So when you first start, the thing to think about is, right, what are my weaknesses and how am I going to plug those gaps? Whether that is a co-founder or whether that's outsourcing or technology, there's so many different things. And I imagine marketing is going to be on your weaknesses list, right? It normally is. So I wouldn't do it alone. I'd map out all the things that you need to do. You need to have a website. You need to have your social media taken care of. These are sort of your 101s, right? And then I would go, right, how do I plug those gaps in my business? So for me, it's about realizing when you need help is probably my number one piece of advice.
Cool. And probably if you're setting up your recruitment business, and you might be in a partnership like you were, Darren, which obviously helped you. But a lot of these people are solo startups, and you're right, marketing is going to be outside that comfort zone. So, Rob, is there anything you can add to that?
Yeah, I think it's about focus. I think very much echoing what Darren said, but it's very much focusing on the things that are important. So we see a lot of people when they're starting up spend a long time focusing about what the logo looks like, focusing on what colors they should use, having hour-long conversations with people about what shade of green they're going to go for. And actually that's not the stuff that's going to make them the money in terms of the marketing. So it's focusing on the bits that are going to make you the money. But also when you're thinking about your brand, you're starting a recruitment business, and it's almost a reflection of you if you're starting up as a one-man band or whatever. And so actually you need to be thinking about what it is you want to stand for, what is it you want to be saying to the market, and how are you going to do that. And then your brand can develop that way, rather than just kind of going, right, I've got a nice logo, right, let's go out and do it because they'll come to me because it's me. It's making sure that you're marrying your personal brand and your business brand together.
Cool. I just share a painful story. We had a marketing company before your time, Rob, before we were using you, and they were faffing about with we wanted to revive the Team brand. Team's been around for 32 years. We felt it was getting a bit old. The name didn't look right. They showed us loads of stuff over 2 or 3 weeks. Andy Dunn, my ND, put a spec into ChatGPT, and our brand came up in 5 seconds, and we loved it. So we chose it. So it's got Team, the name, it's got us in the middle, but lots of collaboration pieces with other people, which reflects what we're about. We're a community of collaborators and sharers. Both
I think the interesting point there, Simon, though, is it's what you put into ChatGPT, right? You had a spec, you knew what you wanted.
Yeah.
Often people don't have that. So it's not normally the design bit, right? Sometimes, if you look at people's logos, I mean, mine's simple, right? I know it's blurred, but it's Pager with a little robot in it. That didn't take long. Coming up with what we wanted it to be was the time. So quite often it's not that, it's what you put into these things. And I think
it's the prompts, isn't it? It's the prompts and thoughts. Well, we wanted the color, we had the name, we gave the idea that we're a collaboration in a community, and it did that. So it was easier for us because we were established. If you're thinking of something new, that's tricky. But blue's a great color. We love blue.
What you said about knowing what you want to be known for, right? You knew you wanted to be known for community collaboration. Often people don't know what they want to be known for, and I think that's a great point from Robert. That's where you need to start.
Yeah, thank you for that. Darren, as CEO of Pager, how have you seen technology change the way recruiters build their personal or agency brand?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest technology change isn't Pager, right? The biggest technology change is actually LinkedIn. If you go back pre-COVID, everybody just treated LinkedIn purely as a job board. So I remember I used to say to people, why don't you post on LinkedIn? They go, oh no, I don't have time for that, right? LinkedIn has changed the way people do new business, work together, collaborate, build relationships. So for me, the biggest technology change is actually that mind shift that social media is a real thing, even in B2B. It's not just there for B2C. And obviously tools like Pager have played a part in making that happen. But for me, what I've seen is the shift that actually COVID accelerated the idea that cold calling isn't the only way to reach people. And people embrace LinkedIn, the other side of LinkedIn, the free organic side of LinkedIn, to actually start nurturing those relationships, building up touch points. I speak about touch points so much, and it's, Robert might correct me here, but I think it's more like 33 touch points in the digital age that you need to have with someone for them to trust you and do business with you, when it used to be more like 7. So for me, what I've seen is that it takes more touch points for someone to trust you, but also it's never been easier to build up touch points with somebody.
Yeah, and through that medium, you don't have to throw loads of money at it. It's energy and time and creativity and having the subject matter that's really hitting your target audience. Rob, anything to add to that before I grill you with a direct question?
No, I think it's I think what we see is that you need to. There's loads of tech out there, but actually it's finding tech that understands recruitment. And I think sometimes we see people, especially when they're starting up, they're trying to find the cheapest tech they can, and we see them find the most obscure piece of tech that's out there that they think is going to do a great job, and it doesn't. So actually it's worth investing that little bit of money in the right tech with people who know what they're talking about, like Darren, that will actually hold your hand through that process as well.
The question for you then, Rob, what are some of the biggest misconceptions recruiters have about recruitment marketing today. And I think people get confused with marketing and branding. And I think if you've got to think brand first and market later. Marketing, I think, is am I right in saying that's the action of promoting your brand, not the conception of your brand?
Yeah, I mean, well, for me, recruitment marketing is about, and this is where people, the misconception, because people think marketing is a completely separate function, stands alone, and is this thing that happens over here and is to do with pretty pictures and glitter and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that's not, I mean, look, some marketing people are like that, but that's not what we're like. For me, the way I see marketing is it's about how can we support the business to drive more sales, to get more unique applications come in. And I think that's the misconception with what marketing is and isn't. Some people think it's just posting stuff on social media, and that you can post any random stuff on there. That really it's just sort of these random acts of marketing, and it'll work, rather than it actually needing a proper strategy. And I find it odd because, and I think it's because people can try and do it themselves, but when they're setting up their IT function, they don't, oh, I'll give it a go myself because I can do it. I know, I'll give it a go. They don't do that with their accounts function. They don't do that with their, if they hire somebody with HR, but they'll give marketing a go. And I understand why, because it's a low barrier to entry in it being able to do it, and there's tools out there like Canva and things you can jump on. But actually, the misconception is that they can do it whilst they're doing their day job as well.
Yeah.
And actually, that it's not necessarily always easy and possible.
Yeah, you touched on brand, the importance of brand at the beginning, and what it should reflect what you're about, and then if you can nail that, and that clarity is evident, that who you are and what you're about and what you believe in and what your visions and values are, then it's easier to decide what marketing actions there is. That's my thoughts. I don't know whether, Darren, you've got any thoughts on that. You sort of led with that a little bit, so I was following on.
I think it's important to remember why you build a brand and why you start a business. So you might be starting your business now and thinking, this is a lifestyle business. It's going to pay the bills. It's going to get me through to retirement. Or you might have the ambition to grow the business and one day exit. And I hope you do, because I love entrepreneurship. I love all of that thing. And I think most people are building a business to one day exit and hopefully sit on a beach somewhere sipping on a cocktail. Right, that's the dream. And you've got to remember that if all you do is invest your time, money, effort in your personal brand, just position yourself, then actually you've got nothing to sell. You've got to have a brand at the end of it that has a value to it, that actually you can actually pass the torch on to somebody else. So for me, the brand is what you can pass on. And that's really, really key.
Cool. A question to you both. What specific branding strategies have you seen directly lead to increased client acquisition? I know that's a big question, but if you've got any tips and guidance for our viewers, that would be a good one. So what branding strategies have you seen directly lead to increased client acquisition?
And there was just something that popped up there, a question that popped up there about how usually sales and marketing work together in a startup or solo business where you're responsible for both. How would you go about aligning these two functions effectively to drive growth? And I guess in terms of client acquisition, I can probably answer them together, to be honest with you, in as much as, so it's around thinking around creating an action. So for example, I'll give you an example, like a salary survey. You could create a salary survey or a research paper or something like that. Now, you're going to have to put a bit of time into doing that, but you're running your own business, right? And that's what you have to do. You have to do these things. Putting some time into, say, a salary survey, and then off the back of that, you're sending it out to clients. You're doing an email campaign off of the back of it. You are creating collateral that you're able to put out on social media. And that can then start leading to conversations, can start leading to people thinking you're adding value as well. So can open doors, can start engagement with clients. And that is a way that marketing is working alongside sales, because you're using the salary survey in this instance that you've put together and created to start driving your sales activity, and then blogs, social media posts, etc., can all filter off the back of that to create some value. Sorry, there's a fly around here. I'm not sort of having some kind of fit. So that's a sort of an example as to how you can make both of them work together, if that makes sense.
Okay, no, that's really helpful. I got a couple of tips about that in a little while, because I got asked that yesterday by our one of our divisions that specialises in what was it? It was wasn't manufacturing engineering, but we run some vertical divisions, and people are asking for a salary survey, and I said, I'll get you one in 15 minutes. And so I'll come back to that. Darren, this is a good space for you and Paiger, isn't it? Because it's what you do, isn't it? That's
it's wonderful what we do, yeah. It's
I would think 70 of our members plus love Paiger for the fact it takes away so much of the creative pain and focus that people have to. What do I post today? What should I talk about in my space? It helps people refine, doesn't it? What their messaging and their brand. So just give us a bit of an overview for those who don't know what Paiger is. What it is.
Yeah, absolutely. So Paiger is a business development tool, and part of that is personal branding. For me, every phone call you make, every email you send, they check you out on LinkedIn these days, and they're asking themselves that one question: do I trust this person? You know, whether that's with my business, whether that's with my career, and we want the answer to be yes. And the way you're going to make that a yes is when they hit your LinkedIn profile, you're sharing good, relevant content. I always say to people, I don't care about getting you thousands of likes. I don't want to turn you into an influencer. I really, I don't need you posting pictures of your dogs, your kids, things like that. Good quality content about your industry so you build up trust. And then the other side to Paiger is, once you've got that underpinning your strategy, we deliver new business leads to you every day. So people that are hiring in your space, help you to research those businesses, find the decision makers, the contact information, present the CVs to them absolutely beautifully, anonymize and spec them in. So it's about having a two-prong approach to new business all in one place.
That's your products, your services evolving, isn't it? Because that couple of years ago, that wasn't part of it. You've really developed that. That's cool. Yeah.
It's been a long 7 years.
Yeah, I think I should say as well. I mentioned it later, the playbook stuff. One of the things that the guys yesterday were asking of team was a detailed salary survey. And Darren, tell me if I'm doing this wrong, but this is what I did. I went on to ChatGPT. I get every month a level of deep search options. And I run a deep search on the target market that I was. It was actually, it was international business, and I wanted to understand how many recruiters in the UK were selling their services from the UK, so not boots on the ground elsewhere, into the international market. What were the challenges? What were the key hot markets? And after that, I did a salary survey for accountancy and finance UK, and it was absolutely on point. And it dragged information from Hays, from Adecco, from the REC, from Institute of Directors. So it was pulling all the data from the right space. And unlike ChatGPT, it doesn't do it in 5 seconds. It took about 10 minutes, but it had such clarity to it. So if you don't know about the Run Deep research thing in ChatGPT, look under tools, and I love it. It's been so useful for us at team and our members that I'm recommending it as much as I can.
And I love it as well. And I think the issue though is right now it's brand new, it's shiny, right? But fast forward a year, and everybody else, all your competitors have also got access to that as well, right? So those salary surveys at that level are going to become a commodity. The thing you need to be thinking about next is, what data am I capturing in my CRM? What proprietary data am I building up so that I can actually produce my own data and actually go beyond what everyone else is going to be able to do? Fast forward a year, everyone's going to be doing the same thing, which means you may as well not do it. Sorry to be so blunt.
Yeah.
Darren's
agree
right.
with you.
Yeah, no, Darren's absolutely right. We see that a lot, and I think it's also when you're creating these things, it's again thinking about why you're doing it and how you're doing it and how you action it, because we could all go off and create a salary survey for the next, in the next 15 minutes, but it's what we then do with that data, how we market that data out there, how we distribute it out to the various channels to ensure that we're, and then when people come in back into the business, how are we channeling them to take some form of action, applying for a job, registering a vacancy, etc. That's the key. So it's not. It's almost it's like with podcasts, right? It's almost like the creation of the entity itself is almost the least important part of it. The most important part is how you're going to get that out there to people.
Yeah, that's a good point. We've covered salary surveys and as a part of content marketing. What other types of content marketing work for recruitment companies in not necessarily winning clients, but raising clients' understanding and raising your profile with those potential clients? Have you got any tips or guidance regarding, apart from salary surveys, what might work tactically for potential clients?
I don't mind going first. I'll jump in. One of the biggest things that we've changed in Pager recently is the ability to format anonymize CVs and then take them to market. Part of what we do in that is actually putting them onto LinkedIn. I said before that people treat LinkedIn purely as a job board, right? It's where you get your candidates, but actually 50% of your network is clients, and candidates become hiring managers. So it's a small thing, but actually think about the product you represent. And I know it's horrible to think of it that way, but your candidates are your product. And how are you actually going to market them? So actively take them to market. And I don't mean just specking in CVs. I mean, actually saying that I've got the ideal person for a business and taking them to market in multiple ways. And you don't need to be a Pager customer to do that, but you can absolutely do it on LinkedIn.
I love that, Darren. One of our members, Lauren, up in Manchester, she pitched on a Friday lunchtime, which is not the best time to do it, to a company. She got a great candidate who was in insurance sales, and she pitched to a company in insurance, big corp with 3,000 staff. She pitched to the HR lead, a COO, a finance director, and she found the CEO's name. She sent an email out and say, I think this candidate will deliver a fantastic ROI for your business. This is what he's done for previous companies in terms of, development. Everyone ignored him except the CEO. And the CEO emailed her back within 20 minutes and said, I've booked a call with our COO for you in half an hour. We're really excited about this individual. We'd like to know more about this candidate. She had a deep conversation with the COO about the candidate who got an interview, and the COO was so impressed he gave her 2 other jobs. That was on a Friday afternoon with a CV outreach. But she sensibly went, if that had gone to the finance director and the HR lead, and I think a hiring manager might have been in there as well. But the CEO saw the vision because of the ROI. So think about your touch points on targets. Don't have one, because in bigger business, the decision makers have different motivators, and the COO was thinking this could give us vision. This could take us a lot further with regard to this individual. Rob, any tactics that you think related to content marketing that might add to what we could do with salary surveys or CVs?
I think with anything with content, the key is consistency, making sure you're regularly putting out good quality content.
You're jumping into my next question.
Yeah.
I was going to say, how important is consistency? You've go on. I'll let you finish.
Yeah. So that's the main one. Good, just putting out good, consistent content that you would want to read, or as yourself as well. Not that you're just creating it for content's sake. and that is the most important thing. And then looking at trying different things, using video, that we see that gets huge responses. Using graphics, trying different things out to see what works. Don't just keep doing the same thing over and over again. Try a few different things out, but maintaining that consistency.
Cool. I think that's good. I just share a couple of real successes that on content that a couple of our members have done. Sarah from Birmingham, I'm not going to mention her company because I don't want to give too much away, but she had a really tough quarter at the beginning of last year, and she's running a fairly sizable business. So she said, what are we going to do to reactivate some action in this market? So she started interviewing candidates and clients with key elements in the markets that she was serving. And in the end, she interviewed 300 clients and 300 candidates and asked them loads of questions about salaries, about what's happening with hybrid working, what's driving candidate attraction and retention. And she put together a report for her target audience and her existing clients. And it was so beautiful. It looked like a FTSE 100 PLC annual report. And then she took it out to all of the clients, the 300 that were interviewed, and some of those 300 were target clients. She had 48 meetings face to face with the document in the first month and won 37 clients. And she said our H2 for last year was absolutely rammed full of jobs in a market that was tough. She started the year badly, but what happens in people's market, if you're in manufacturing and engineering in Bedfordshire, you only understand the challenges you've got. You might not know what's happening in the rest of the market with the talent pools, with your competitors, with salary surveys. If you can consolidate, recruiters are in a brilliant space, especially if they're in a geography or a market and they really understand that space. They can feed information to those clients and candidates about what's happening elsewhere. And it can encourage candidates to stop sticking, because a lot of them are nervous at the moment and don't want to leave a job because having a job is security. And why do I take the risk of going to a startup or going to a new company where I don't know anyone? So there's a lot of stickiness with candidates and there's less jobs around. So, but that information encourages trust and support, because you're giving them, you're educating them on the wider market, and I've got a few other examples of that. But don't be afraid that data is available. Sarah worked the market hard by doing one-to-one interviews with 300 candidates, 300 clients. Guess what she's doing this year? She's interviewing 1,200, and because it'll be bigger. But
my key takeaway from that, Simon, though, is that what that took was rolling your sleeves up, not going to ChatGPT, right, and going, I'm going to do some proper real marketing, right? That's what that is. And whoever Sarah is, if you're watching Sarah, a lot of respect for you, because that's what it takes. Things in life don't come easy, right? Growing a business.
I think you know who it is. I think you know it is, Darren. Right on. Let me get you another question here, guys. On attracting talent, how can a recruiter's brand be used to attract top talent, especially in a competitive market? So we're talking about candidates now. Many of you guys know we run Team Exchange, which is that job sharing platform. And last week alone, there was £135,000 worth of fees on there, just with under a dozen jobs, on jobs some of our team members can't fill because they haven't the talent pool's difficult to attract at the moment. So other team members jump in with their candidates and they job share and profit share on the fees. But got any tips for really building your recruiter brand to attract top talent?
Yeah, I'll go first, Rob, if you don't mind. A couple of things for me.
this is your bag really from Pager.
I think we often forget that the recruitment marketing, what it started at was writing job adverts. And actually, I think we write terrible job adverts, if we're being honest. I think if we look at them, we're not putting any sort of substance, not selling the roles, not selling the clients. If you don't follow Mitch Sullivan on LinkedIn, please do connect with him. He's absolutely fantastic.
I was going to say Mitch Sullivan, if he's watching, would be going, I can sort that out. Yeah.
Right? And that for me is the start of how are you going to attract candidates with your marketing is actually put the time and effort into doing a good job advert. To come back to the question about brand, I think the cheap way is to use job boards, right? We've become reliant on expensive ways because we haven't got the brand. But actually investing in the website, making sure that it's indexed on Google for jobs and having good adverts, for me is like the number one thing. That's where I'd be spending my time.
Yeah. Just for those who don't know us, we can save for our members. We collectively buy from all the key job boards, so we can save up to 70% on job boards like CV Library, Total Jobs, JobSite, Monster, Reed, and less on Indeed, but we can still save 10% for anyone who's interested in talking to us. Rob, anything on that question?
I think just a couple of things. One is that I think it's when we're talking about talent, everyone's talking about trying to engage new talent, but actually a lot of databases already have talent on there that you're just not engaging with. And when we've done a lot of analysis with people when they're spending job boards, often they're spending money to re-engage with people who are already on their database, but they're doing it through a job board. So actually start with your database, make sure you've got a plan. If it might be newsletters, it might be whatever it might be, for making sure that you're going out and engaging with those candidates on your database. And then secondly, it's what we see certainly with smaller businesses, and I understand it, is you have the hot tap of clients and the cold tap of candidates, and you turn one tap on and the other tap off. Like you go, oh crap, I've not got enough clients, so I'm going to put all my efforts into generating more clients. And it's like, oh, the market's changed, the pendulum's gone the other way, the seesaw's tipped, and I now need to go and do candidates. And actually, yes, you want to be putting emphasis on one or the other if you need more, but you need to be making sure that you're consistently marketing to your candidates no matter what. And I think sometimes if you've got not many jobs on, but there's loads of people looking for jobs out in the marketplace, you're tempted not to post your jobs onto social media. You're tempted to be a little bit quieter because you don't want people to apply to them because you can't manage the response rate. But that then stores up problems, because when you do need the candidates, you haven't built up that goodwill, you haven't built up that equity in your brand, both personal and your business brand.
Yeah, I get that. Thank you for that. Can either of you share a story or example of a recruiter who turned their personal brand into a talent magnet? So they really developed that personal brand into a business brand that became a talent magnet for candidates?
I mean, I can't share specific stories, but we've got hundreds and maybe thousands of reviews on the website, right? But I mean, I spoke to someone the other day that made a £38,000 placement in the US market by having a really good candidate that come to them through their personal brand and then enter them to market. So if you think about it, it's just about I keep coming back to it, but having the product. If you've got the product, people will hire even if they've not got open roles. You mentioned that CEO earlier, right? Come to me with a really good salesperson. I'll probably open up a door here, but a really good salesperson, proven in RecTech, hit targets, smash through targets, self-source. I'm hiring them. It's not on our website, but I'll be hiring them. So you just got to remember that your product is what you need, and your personal brand plays a key part in attracting that.
That's grand. Thank you, Darren. Yeah, and that's a good example in America as well, which is a great market for a percentage and also salaries, isn't it? Rob, anything to add from some of your client pool?
Yeah, I think it's very similar. We're working with a lot. I think it's the people that show real personality online and consistently doing, consistently marketing themselves out there. They're getting the returns. The people that kind of do these random acts of marketing aren't getting it. But actually, and it might be finding something. So there's the guy that sells the CRM software who I always post pictures of his packed lunch, right? That's his shtick. So if you can fix on something like that, actually you've got that, there's something like that. If you can find that one little thing that kind of is quite quirky, that can work really well. But otherwise, it's just being consistent with putting out good quality content all the time. That's what you need to do.
And focusing on the market or the geography you serve, so that people go, "That's me." Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Being very specific about if you're working the technology market in East Anglia, you're constantly talking about stuff that's going on in East Anglia, you're talking about tech, etc., and really making sure that you're focusing on that.
Cool. Thank you very much. Now, Darren, here's one for you. Apart from Paiger, and then what are the top tools or platforms you recommend for recruiters building their brand today? And you mentioned LinkedIn, of course, and how you use LinkedIn. But is there anything else you might use? Any other mediums that you would use apart from LinkedIn?
Completely depends on your market. So the question to ask yourself is, where is my audience? And for the vast majority of people we work with, LinkedIn's the answer. But if you're in blue collar construction, for example, TikTok might work for you. Facebook might work for you. Instagram might work for you. There's so many different things. So you would need to map out your audience first of all and ask yourself, right, where do they live? And that will probably be different whether they're candidates or clients, because most clients, your hiring managers will be on LinkedIn, but maybe your candidates won't be. So you've got to go for that exercise before you even do a single thing. Just map out your audiences. Work with someone like Robert to do that, right? Don't try and do it on your own. And then that will layer on the tools you need. In terms of tools to build your brand, obviously I'm going to say we're the best one. I'm genuinely not aware of any others, so I'll let Robert throw in some other ones, because, and that's not me being facetious, I just don't know any.
Good.
I think that's a really good point Darren makes. We meet a lot of people who go, can you help us make this tech work? And my first question is, well, when you bought it, what was the problem you were trying to solve? And often it's, well, we don't know what we were trying to solve. We just bought the tech because we liked it. We were sold it, right? Rather than thinking, what problem am I trying to sell? And what's the tech out there to buy it? Genuinely, Darren is right. If we're talking about personal branding, then there really is no better or other software really than Paiger. And we always recommend Paiger to clients because it works. I think if we're looking at other tech that you'd want to invest in, obviously you want to invest in a good website. You don't want that falling down all the time, that kind of stuff, and making sure you've got a solid email marketing platform, whatever that might be, to make sure that's working well, and that will help you generate drive your personal brand. But Paiger is the one.
I mean, we're using HubSpot now, and we've made it work properly at last. But we were using MailChimp, and you gave me a really good tip, Rob. The Brevo did exactly what MailChimp did, is probably about half the price, and that was really good. We used that for a little while we sorted out our problems at HubSpot, and that was fabulous.
Yeah, I think it's finding the right thing that does the job you want. There's so many people out there that have bought the Ferrari to do the school run in tech. And you go to them and they're using kind of 5% of this product and spending a lot of money on it. So, actually it's no good having this tech if you then can't use it to add value, which again, I can say this because Darren can't, Paiger is exceptionally good value for money because you get great tech at a great price, whereas often you only get one of those with the LSs out there.
Thank you. How would you measure whether your brand is actually working? Brand and marketing, I would say. If it's on platforms like LinkedIn, is about likes and followers? I'm being a bit shallow there, but you see where I'm coming from.
For me, the only measurement that actually matters at the end of the day is revenue. But you've got to accept that you won't be able to measure that maybe for 3 to 6 months if we're talking about personal branding. It's not an overnight switch. But there'll be indicators like increasing company followers. I'm interested in because that's how many people are going to see your brand. But then your website traffic, I'd fully expect your website traffic to be ticking up nicely over time. And then the conversions you get from job applications, job alert registrations, client inquiries, inbound inquiries, you should be tracking all of those in your CRM, and you should be seeing an upward trend. which will eventually lead to revenue. So if you look, for example, in the call to action in here, I made sure we had a UTM source equals team webinar. That's so I know people came from this webinar I've done, and I might not work with you for another 6 months, but in 6 months' time, I can go, actually, you first heard of Paiger because of Simon and team. So it's all about leading indicators, but ultimately the only goal is revenue.
Yeah, that's cool. Robert, anything from you?
It's exactly the same. I mean, look, if you want to be doing, if you've got your website, certainly if we're setting up a website, we'll have Google goals in there, so we can track goals. So a goal is somebody applying for a job, registering interest, whatever that might be. We use those. That can be a good indicator as well. We look at things, how many people have you added to the database. You might not have placed them yet, but if you're adding good quality people to the database, then that has got value to it. But yeah, the ultimate metric is, are you making money from it? But it is hard to track. And I guess if you're a smaller business or a solo, actually it's easier, conversely, because you're quite honest. If we're working with a larger business, then every single recruiter wants to say that they headhunted a candidate and that the client came to them because they're amazing. That it's never because the marketing. Whereas actually, if you're a solopreneur or you're a small business, you're a bit more honest about what's going on because it's your money, right?
Yeah. No, good. I was going to ask you about Google Adverts. Google Ads. From I'll tell you my story in a little while. Some of you know I used to be in the fascinating world of health and safety recruitment. If that's not a conversation killer, I don't know what is. But I'll come back to that in a second. Are you seeing Google Ads still working, Rob, with websites?
Well, not for the vast majority of people, if I'm being honest. If you've got budget, if you're in a specific niche, potentially, but actually we suggest people spend their money on social advertising rather than Google, because long gone are the days when somebody goes into Google and types in, I need an accountancy recruitment business in Birmingham, for example. They just don't do it. And if they do, the competition for that search term is so high that it becomes quite expensive, to the point where actually most businesses can't really afford to do it properly. There are some instances where it is, but generally I would say that's not where I would start. It's way down the roadmap. I don't know if Darren agrees, but for most of the clients we work with, that's exactly where they would be.
I mean, even for us, we only do AdWords ever so slightly. I know it's not called AdWords anymore, but it always will be to me. We only do it ever so slightly, and it's things like certain competitors. If you search for that, then maybe we'll come up with a valuable piece of content. But no, for us, we're all in on LinkedIn ads, and that's where we're getting the most return.
Yeah, cool, good shout. I won't give my example because it's probably out of date, because the world has moved on. Thank you for that. I'm just going to try and look at, just trends and looking forward now, if we can, looking ahead. What branding trends are emerging in recruitment that recruiters should keep on their radar? So are there new branding trends that are emerging? You mentioned earlier, Darren, TikTok, which is something I up until about a year ago, I hadn't heard used in the recruitment space, but I'm hearing it more now.
Yeah, I mean, it started off as silly dances, right? Let's be honest, that's what it was. Then for the B2B space, recruitment space in particular, it was more for your internal talent acquisition, especially when, as an industry, we were so big on hiring grads, right? Fantastic place to reach those grads. But more and more, as a nation, if you like, we're embracing short form video, TikTok. We're all doom scrolling. So actually, I do think it plays a place in B2B. It's harder to be targeted. So for us, for example, it's easy to do like a funny video about recruitment and then drive that back. But am I reaching the decision maker? Is it someone that actually has got the buying power to buy Paiger? I'm not really in control of that. So for me, it lacks the targeting that you can do on the likes of LinkedIn, but it's not a channel you should ignore anymore.
Cool. Rob, anything to add?
No, I think AI is going to continue to be on everyone's radar and needs to be on everyone's radar. but I think it's finding the product that's going to help you to do that. And there are so many out there that are sort of that are coming onto the market in terms of general marketing that actually, I'd say at the moment stick with the tried and tested technologies that are out there, not these shiny things over here that are here today and gone tomorrow.
Okay. What about Instagram for recruiters? Is that a space that you're seeing many of your clients or members using?
It probably goes back to the TikTok answer that Darren gave, to be honest with you. It depends what market. I mean, if you're placing exec search people, probably not. If you're placing, kind of more blue collar workers, then we are seeing some take on that. But actually, Facebook is working better for blue collar at the moment still.
Okay, cool. Thank you for that. How do you see AI? Sorry for jumping the gun a bit. You did it again, Rob. AI and automation key in this sentence, impacting brand building in recruitment.
I think AI is getting. I think the problem with, well, not the problem, but the issue is with AI is it's making recruiters, it's making it seem easy for recruiters to do stuff, so they're just pumping stuff out. We're seeing it now if you go on LinkedIn, people leaving longer form content on there, but it's all waffle because they've not put the right chat in there, they're not put the right prompts in there. So I think it's making it easy for people to be more visible, but it's not necessarily making them stand out. They're just sort of blurring into the background with everybody else. So I think that's where actually learning how to use AI properly is going to be something that people need to do.
Yeah, there's probably a training session we could do on that just going forward. But what about the AI and automation question?
If I can jump in there, so
together.
I mean, we've just done this process in my own business, right, where we mapped out every single thing that somebody does as a human being in this business, and we asked ourselves, is it worth the squeeze? What I mean by that is it worth their time being the ones to do it? If you take your client, Simon, who did the interviews, was it worth the squeeze? Absolutely. AI and automation can't do that, right? So if I was looking at my business, I'd go through and list every single task and just ask myself that question. If it's not, I'd look to automate it. If it is, don't go near it, ring fence it, because it's what makes you brilliant.
That's great guidance for a solo or a small business starting up, where the business owner suddenly becomes the salesperson, the marketing individual, the resourcer, credit controller, accountancy and finance, compliance, everything else. Either outsource it or find some tools to do some automation in there so that you can focus your time on the stuff that really makes you money, and that's engagement with clients and candidates, isn't it?
Absolutely. Never automate that. Please don't automate that.
Yeah. But it also comes back to the content that you're putting out there, because you can automate anything, but if the content you're putting out there, because you're automating it, is rubbish, then it's not a good thing.
Last big question, folks. I think it's the last one. What will distinguish standout brands in recruitment 2 to 3 years from now? And if you know any, it doesn't have to be people we know, but if you've seen brands in recruitment that really impress you, tell me about them and share what you think is impressive. So
the latter's a hard one, right? So subjective. Sorry, Robert, were you going to talk? All right.
No, you carry on.
The problem is, now that I said that, I've forgotten the question. Simon, what was the question?
Right. Well, like I always do, I ask you one question, then I add something by ad-libbing. I wanted to know what's going to create standout brands in recruitment in 2 to 3 years' time. But are there any standout brands that you love at the moment? So you could choose one or the other of those questions if you like. And why do you like them?
Yeah. So what's going to make you stand out is actually by ignoring the noise. And I know it sounds a weird thing to say, right? But it's so easy right now to be distracted, to try to automate everything. AI is coming to take our jobs. It's so important to remember that the reason this industry is absolutely brilliant is it's human to human. And if you can concentrate on making sure the human to human part is the best it can be, and I include marketing in that, right? Because humans are the ones that see your marketing. That's what I'd be concentrating on. You might be sitting here going, look, the market's a bit tough. I get it. We've got to remember it's a massive market, right? Billions, a £1 billion market. It's not it's not a small market. There's jobs out there. Concentrate on that. And if you do those things and you don't try to automate the wrong things, what will happen is in 3 years' time, your competitors have automated the wrong things and you're the standout brand.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Rob, anyone, anything to add to that, or is anyone really impressing you in the recruitment space at the moment with what they're doing?
Well, all our clients are impressing me, but I think that's because of what we're doing for them. No, I'm joking. I think it's that hyper-personalized experience that people are looking for, and I think they're craving that more so now. I think with AI, you go through to chatbot, you can't actually speak to anybody for ages. It's frustrating, and so people are looking for that hyper personalized experience. I think it's making sure that you've got authentic values that are integrated throughout your business, but that comes through your marketing. I think they're the two that I think are really a standout for me. That the kind of, if you can do that, you will end up standing out from the crowd of beige.
Well, gentlemen, that has been fabulous. Lots of tips and guidance there. And if any of our viewers are not following you two guys and your businesses, then they're making some big mistakes straight away, because they can learn a lot from what you do and how you can guide people. So thank you very much for joining us today, Darren and Rob. I hope you've enjoyed it all, everyone, and let's look forward to meeting you guys soon on the road trips that we have around the country. And thank you for supporting Team and your ongoing contributions. Bye for now, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers, folks.